Hello folks, and welcome to another SUSOIX SpikeBoarding video. And here we are in the northwest corner of Massachusetts at the bottom of Greylock Mountain. And there's two ways to go up, and we didn't know this when we came here, so I'm not quite sure which way we did go up, but it was a good time and had a lot of fun and discovered probably quite possibly our favorite climb on the northeast corridor of this very fine country, and that is Mount Greylock. And we sort of approached it with a little bit of cavalierness, and we discovered that it's a pretty big mountain. We were rooting around in Connecticut earlier in the day, trying to find the top of Connecticut, and boy, we ended up in the woods in the little minivan off to the side of the road. There was no road. Suddenly, hey, if somebody knows where the top of Connecticut is, let us know how to get there. If it's paved, point the way. But we don't think so. So we bailed at around 1 o'clock or so. And we had our sights set on Greylock. We started driving north, and that's what's beautiful about New England, isn't it? That just in a couple hours, you're just in a whole nother place and a whole nother state, and in a whole nother set of mountains, Green Mountains and White Mountains and Greylock Mountain. So of course the kit. What's up with the kit today? Well, the kit is giving a little love to the beast of them all, the grand old gal, Whiteface Mountain, and we're just giving a little nod out to her because she is one heck of a summit. And if you go up there, don't go cavalierly, because Whiteface will just snarl your socks off. So that's what the jersey's about, and we've summited in this very same way in stand-up spike at Whiteface. And again, don't approach Whiteface cavalierly. And also, it's a difficult mountain to get on. When we were at Whiteface, we connected with a local who shepherded us up. And anyway, that's a tough mountain to ski on and stand up spike on logistically. I wish it wasn't, but that's the case that it is. So make yourself to Greylock, where it is just as smooth. The pavement is incredible. And be prepared, folks, to stand and deliver right out of the gate. So we went down via bicycle and board, a little Velo spiking, leaning on some disc brakes. We parked and then went down to where you saw us start. So don't park in that car park at the bottom. That's a service area. And they will request that you come up and park in the visitors area. We're going to pass the visitors parking lot here in a moment, and that is where you ought to park. And if you want to do this entire summit, we'll then start down at the service parking lot and start stand-up spiking straight on up. As you can see, the pavement is incredibly sweet, and it only gets better, believe it or not. It only gets better. So as we go up, you're going to see a lot less cracks. And they found the perfect blend of pavement when they laid this road. I don't know how old this road is, but boy, oh boy, they laid it down really nice. And of course, since you're not getting massive amounts of truck traffic, that's really what destroys roads is tonnage over expansion contraction. And I wonder if anybody is ski racing up this mountain, but if they're not, we're going to come back with some roller skis and some ski poles, and we will double pole this because we just absolutely fell in love with this mountain. It actually has a downhill in the middle of the uphill, which is really sensational, but if you don't know it, the downhill actually pitches you at pretty good speed. But now let's keep talking about this this lower section here, and it is significant, and it will hand you your ass on a plate. So you might want to get a little bit of a warm-up, or get your warm-up brain going. And your warm-up brain just basically means that, hey, I haven't warmed up, so I'm going to feel like garbage for the first 20 minutes. And that's okay. And you can come and do personal records, and don't worry so much about time. But if you're really itching to lay down time trials at their maximum and really set good times, or you're seeking to break some times, go get yourself a warm-up, at least 10, 20, 15 minutes over and over again. We keep popping out here and not doing any warm-ups, and boy, you just suffer like crazy and probably lose a good minute, I'd say, on the whole endeavor. Because when you're not warmed up, it's just brutal. But this lower pitch is probably the absolute hardest part of the climb, and so it's a little bit of a rude awakening. And if you can get past it, then you will be a-okay, no problem. And if you can get this kind of weather, holy cow, is this like amazing or what? That's just a wonderful Massachusetts afternoon. Temperature must have been around, just like 73, 74 degrees. And you're going to see beautiful pictures all the way up. We're getting closer to the car park, and when that switch happens and you see that deceleration of speed, you know how steep this is. So this is the steeper part of the grade. And you'll see how those elbows are tucking in now and making a diamond formation as opposed to a square. And tiny little strokes, you know it's steep. You're going to see a cyclist come flying by here soon, and then it'll give you an idea of this pitch. So this pitch is pretty steep. When you see that switch and the board come to a complete halt with a self-arrest, and it's kind of a salvation grip underneath that skateboard spike, you know it's steep. And that's when you need to really remain calm, stay cool, and know that flatter sections are coming, and it's your turn to do some work. There's a couple little cracks there. Try to avoid spiking into them. So carbide steel spike tips don't like to go into little cracks. So if you do know that you're going to go into a little crack, just pull back just a little. You might have noticed that last spike went into the crack, and there was kind of a little pullback. And there is the car park, as you can see over there on the left of your picture. And that's where you want to pull in and park. And if you want to take off from there, hey, that's cool too. But check out that pavement glass, people. Holy moly. Oh, so nice. Absolutely beautiful. They maintain this park so very well. And there you see the cyclist. So, wow, he's disappeared already. Give you an idea of the pitch on this slope. And, yes, a little shading is always nice all the way to the top. We're going to have shading and sun enter the park. There's the gate. I'm sure they close at sunset. So behave yourself and get yourself out of there before it's dark if you're up and around there, and obey all the traffic laws, and be nice to the other participants and respect all other users in the park. And up we go. It's still a little steep here, as you can see, and once we get past this steep, we know it's going to get a little better. And we didn't know the climb all that well, but we did know that there was a downhill in the middle of the uphill. There was a little slip on the spike, and the moment that happens, that can be really unnerving to beginners. And when that does happen, don't fret and just go straight into the next one, and begin to find your rhythm again. So the destabilization of your rhythm, here we are picking up a little more speed. As you can see, it's starting to flatten out a little bit. Yeah, hard part's over for a little while. Now that was the hardest, some of the hardest stuff. So when you destabilize, as I was saying, you want to find again your rhythm slowly. And when your rhythm is broken, your mental state will be broken, and you need to reconnect it as quickly as possible. Maintain calm and chill, and know that you got to just get straight back into that tight, loose, tight, loose, tight, loose, tight, loose. Constantly tight and loose. Folks, the loose part is as important as the tight part. If you don't find your loose return and relax during it, and there's some speed bumps that are right there. You need to go around them, and we're right up close on our bicycle. So that's the first one. We're all new to this, and the cyclist hadn't seen that coming up, and that's kind of why we got it sort of came up on us a little quick. When you're stand-up spiking and even double poling these great big summits, you're not really looking up the mountain. So folks, don't look up the mountain, because if you do for too long, you can look up a little just to see where the next turn is, or the next final rise of what's before you. And as you can see, it's getting a little steep there again. When we come into those sections where it's a complete stop during the switch, that pitch is going to be somewhere above 8%. Don't look up. If you look up for too long, it's just going to freak you out. It's just going to crack your brain, and you're going to be like, oh my God. The mountain will just come, take you, and just take you up to the sky. You'll disappear. It'll just absorb you, crack you, whatever metaphor it is you want to use. That's what's going to happen. So what's pivotal and of most importance here, just critical in hill climbing, is losing yourself in the technical aspect of what it is that you're doing, and finding a relaxed state of mind and a relaxed complete body state, and focus over and over again on load times, folks. This is going to be an hour and 15 minutes, and of course we had no idea how long it was going to be because we hadn't done it, and we didn't pay attention to the elevation. I think I had exclaimed at the beginning, about 60 minutes on this one, and we went 15 over. So, but that's an hour and 15, people. I mean, you got 45 more minutes if you want to finish a world-class marathon, and we're talking 2 hours there. Those are like 10 people on Earth. So the rest of us run marathons at 3.5 hours. An hour 15 compared to 3.5 hours. You're running a 3:30 marathon, and I wish I could do that. So you're absolutely flying, and that's 3.5 hours load time. So people keep flipping out on this upper body load situation, and it's like, bang, wrong, incorrect. You have wrong information. There's absolutely nothing that incredible about what you're watching this athlete do, other than the fact that they have become acclimated to Nordic sport development, and they develop their core and their lats. You're looking at like that most average master athlete who was very well aware of the body adapting to load via many years of cycle racing, especially up here in this neck of the woods. It's great Northeast bicycle racing all over Massachusetts and Vermont and New Hampshire, and this athlete was exposed to all of it in upstate New York, and continued forth, and pretty much was amazingly impressed with how much load the body could adapt in cycling, and then got into Nordic sport and realized, wow, the upper body can sustain a tremendous amount of load. In skiing, when you're on snow, and on wheels as well, the upper body is delivering like 65% more body transmission than the lower body. It's just the technical delivery of what a body can deliver on rolling boards or on sliding boards. The upper body can deliver a tremendous amount of power, and of course, if you can get a little skinnier, you'll need less power. Look at that backlight picture, beautiful through those trees. And then again, we see when it begins to flatten out a little bit, that's when we begin to carry a little more speed. The satisfaction of climbing mountains in this way, or in double poling and stand-up spike, what you're seeing here, which is the principal foundation stroke of SpikeBoarding, or in double poling, good foundation stroke of Nordic ski. Doing this, people, is, I just can't tell you, it's a satisfaction that is very different than that of running up a mountain, or than that of cycling up a mountain. And until you do it, you're not going to know. And here's the great part: when you do it, you're going to have a well-developed core and lat and upper body situation, that you're just going to be delighted with. I don't care whether you're opening a jar of pickles or you just get yourself out of a bathtub. But when you begin to really have core and lat and upper body that's functional, okay? That's functional, because if you're not functioning with it, I guess it's nice to pick up weight and put it down, or to pull yourself up on bars, but to not have function from A to B, this particular athlete just can't see eye to eye with why anything like that would be going on. But picking up weight, that's what rocks your boat. That's terrific. But what we like to do is pick up weight with a certain amount of transport sport functionality to it, and we're certainly going from A to B in this video, and that would be from the bottom to the top, and just extrapolate into daily life. And now an athlete of this kind, a human being of this kind, speaks a language with which they could use their core to get to work. So remember, folks, this is not an exercise in demonstrating prowess or exclaiming, we're the best, because there's a logic to transport sport, and it is, if you recreate with human movement that is fun, and you develop performance with that human kinetic forward propulsion, and then you can use it to go to work, there's form and function there, folks. So human movement, yowza, that guy was going fast. Human movement is infrastructure, guys. You eat, and how we eat, and how that food comes to us from the topsoil, how it comes from the sun into the ground and into us, is all infrastructure. How we deal with that is infrastructure, and we can optimize it so as to have a very nice life here for us and for people in future generations. Or if we don't optimize it, then that's what we'll have. We'll have a non-optimized eating system. If you have a non-optimized drinking system, you might run out of water. You might pollute the crap out of your aquifers, and then, yeah, that's what you got. That's what you like. The Hudson River down here in New York City, they were dumping raw sewage into it until 1986, man. So Kingston to New York, raw sewage, baby. Boom! Right into the beloved Mohicanatuck, because that is the name of the river, and not the Hudson River for 10,000 years before Henry Hudson showed up. Mohicanatuck, the great one, the arm of the sea, which runs in both ways. So then you get to human movement, and human movement, okay, well, you can teach people basketball, baseball, and football all you want, and it's a lot of fun, and this particular athlete absolutely loves pitching. It's diabolical. How'd you do that with your fingers? And batting, you ever stepped into a cage and stepped up for 60-mile-an-hour batting cage practice? Like, whoa. Well, where'd that go? So, wonderful skill sets. And puck handling, oh please, to dance through defensive men and simply put the puck in the net when you want to, glorious, good time fun. Those skill sets, they don't function that well into sustainability for transport. So transport sports is amazing, and cycling is fantastic. And folks, check out Velo spiking. So Velo spiking is multi-sport. Oh, we've been sort of conditioned. There's a little speed bump again, and our cyclist nailed it. Got that gap. We followed right behind him, and there was no issue. And by the way, those are a little gnarly coming down. We Velo spiked on the way down, folks. We're going to get up here. We're going to make some videos of Velo spiking. They're going to blow you away. Spike boards do not have a fully operational disc brake, and we are actually investigating how to get that done at a university level with engineering students. So stay tuned. It's going to be cool. But in the meantime, multi-sport and Velo spiking, as I was saying, is going on. Multisport 2.0, so it's the blending of other sports besides running and swimming. Who on earth and why is it a natural given fact that multisport needs to be run and bike and swim? That's preposterous. That's not the only way to multisport. Multisport can be many things. And of course, people have skied and cycled and mixed a lot of things, but it's never been sort of, you know, completely given a name. So Velo spiking is high performance or dedicated performance and practice of cycling and spikeboarding. And you're going to see how that works really, really well in the future here, especially in teams of 2, because a cyclist can pedal to the top of this summit, and then a spikeboarding athlete will be right behind them. Within minutes, the cyclist can just turn around, come back to where the spikeboarding athlete is, head back up to the summit, and maybe one more turn around, and that spikeboarding athlete's going to be at the top, and then both athletes are going to come down, and the spikeboarding athlete is simply going to lean on the bike with disc brakes, and man, you're going to get off summits so quick, it's not even funny. But don't hit those speed bumps, please. Keep an eye out, and keep your brain on, and pay attention to what you're doing. It's not a go for it sport. So what's interesting about spikeboarding is it is the first time that the board begins to live in the full body endurance theater and has a focus of endurance, just 100% total endurance into the board without any other thought to that. So when you think about the skateboard, it's always been living in the radical and acrobat, the beautiful theater of radical and acrobat, with street skateboarding and longboard sliding. All that's radical. So downhill skiing is incredibly radical, and no one really thinks of it, I suppose, that way. But I mean, downhill skiing is insanely radical, and there's perilous danger constantly in that sport. And of course, skiing then has cross-country skiing, where it's just output, output, output. And that's what spikeboarding is. Spikeboarding is everything that cross-country skiing's ever been brought onto a board. And now the delicious part of this climb, as you've been watching in these pictures, is the downhill and the speedy section. And this is just the little speedy section. Has a couple little rollers that pop up again, but then it's going to just plop you straight out into about a 30-mile-an-hour downhill. And we don't know this road at all other than having driven it up once. Don't ever climb anything or go on anything if you haven't driven it. So make sure you've ridden it on a bicycle. Get out, know your roads, and know them as best as you can. Certainly take reconnaissance one time, but we haven't really descended any of these downhills. And as luck will have it, you will see there's absolutely nobody driving around until that one moment when you don't really want them driving around. So we'll have them on our backside, and one of them stops to look and pull over and tell us how fast we're going. Anyway, I wish it wouldn't happen that way, and it would have been a little cleaner. But there we go, straight over those speed bumps. If you carry enough speed, you can eat them right up, no problem. And so when we get to this downhill section, you're going to see we're going to hold on to the bike a little bit, just to keep everything copacetic and chilled out. But it has all rollout. The whole thing's rolled out, and if you can handle 35 miles an hour, you'll be fine on a board. There's nothing that's going to impede you at all. And I don't remember that there was any speed bumps on that little downhill section at all. So you should be cool with that as well. We're going to come back here and double pole this, and we'll get up here and practice that little downhill section. On roller skis, it's going to be a little bit different, and the commitment to speed is a little more certain. But if we do it with a bike, we should be fine as well. So in spikeboarding, of course, if you do need a little braking when you come down, just keep your speed in check. If there's no rollout, make darn sure that you will be able to put a foot down, do a little foot drag, or maybe cadence brake. But essentially, if you don't know downhills, keep your speed under 15 miles an hour and just get your cadence brake going, and keep it chill, and maybe do some drifts, switch drifts going down, and don't take any risks. This is not a radical downhill sport. Leave that for downhillers. Leathers, spine protectors, slide pucks, that whole bit. So here we are getting into this little downhill section, and as you can see, As I promised, this road is just sensational. It's absolutely beautiful. And the pavement is just supremely nice. You'll have one of the smoothest rides you'll ever have on any summit. These pictures are absolutely gorgeous. The backlight at around 4:30 this time of day is sensational. And as you can see, the stand-up spike stroke works incredibly well, like a double pole in skiing. You simply are going far too fast to be kicking here at all. So to execute a Kubi cross, you just wouldn't be able to do it at those kinds of speeds. So that's when the stand-up spike stroke really reigns supreme over 18-19 miles an hour up to about 26 miles an hour, and then of course everyone's going to go into a tuck. And here are some of these little climbs on this downhill. So it pretty much goes downhill once, twice, and then on the third time is when you're going to pick up the most speed. So on these little rollers, try to carry your speed, make that effort to just get yourself right over them, carrying your speed. And also try to keep the board straight. We're going all over the place, and that's happening because of the camera bike. So if there were no camera bike there, we wouldn't be impeded, and that transfer, that sort of difference of speed between board and bike is what's making that spikeboarding athlete go left and go right and go left and go right. If they were there just alone, they'd just be nailed on a railroad track, going straight. You don't want to be all over the road. But of course, if there's a little bit of left and a little bit of right, sort of a natural thing that will happen in stand-up spike. But just like a bicycle, if you want to maintain the fastest speed, definitely try to keep it straight in a straight line, straight beeline. Is going to help you out quite a bit. Yeah, in relation to the bicycle and the spikeboarding athlete, a lot of things sort of change a little bit when you have to make these films. And being behind a camera bike is not the most wonderful thing in the world. It's a little bit annoying. There's a lot going on in the athlete's mind, and just maintaining this camera distance in between bike and board is a little more complicated than you might think, and it's just a little bit makes a little bit of consternation for the athlete. So that's why the board sometimes goes left and goes right. This is trickier than you might think. So here we are coming back up to another little rolling summit, and then just imagine this road on the way down. It hasn't been filmed yet, but boy, it was absolutely delightful to come down this mountain and leaning on fully operational disc brakes on a bike and Velo spiking, and we just want to get back here and show that. And also we want to show how the bike can really begin to give power to the spikeboarding athlete, and that would be through Madison slings and slight toe exchanges. So there's a lot of power in the bicycle, and the power can be transferred to the board in an exchange of power between the two athletes, and you're going to begin to see that. We're very excited about Velo spiking, more excited about Velo spiking than we are about spikeboarding, because it is multi-sport and because it's just so much gosh darn fun. Velo spiking is off the scale a blast. And of course, if you already know cycling, Velo spiking is going to come to you very quickly. I guess both sports have their intricate and difficult parts of them. Cycling is so sublimely challenging to stay relaxed and have beautiful 360-degree spin. That it does take a lot longer than people think. You just jump on a bike and pedal, nay. You just jump on a bike and actually begin to learn to spin. If you can't spin well, you can't spin big gears at fast speeds, then forget about it. If you can't spin, period, any gear at any speed, most people are out there just slogging, and that's not what cycling's about. Cycling's about cycling and efficiently extracting energy from your body in through that bicycle onto the pavement. So that could take you easy 3 years. And spikeboarding, It's going to happen a lot faster than roller ski, and we have yet to see how quickly people can become clean spikeboarding athletes as opposed to clean cycling athletes. But the cyclists are all going to be able to fake it a heck of a lot quicker. It's harder to sort of appear to be doing it right in spikeboarding, less places to hide. But the two sports blend incredibly well. Take it from this Velo spiking athlete, cycling, spikeboarding, phenomenal, primo place to be, incredible. You want to get here, and especially, I'll tell you a little secret here, you want to get there because it gets cold as a dickens in winter. And you know, if you're not racing your bicycle, then more than likely when it is 1 degree or 10 degrees or below zero, you're not really going to be all too excited about going on a bike, and you're going to skip workouts. And unless you can run, if you folks can run, hey, if your knees have sustained it, God bless you. God bless you all who can run. This athlete couldn't run. And hey, that's why we're in spikeboarding. Spikeboarding's a very hot sport, incredibly hot sport, like cross-country skiing, like cross-country running. And so it's 1 degree out. So what? I'm going spikeboarding. I'm going to be nice and toasty in 10 minutes, and I'm never going to be a popsicle on a bike holding the bars. It's just going to be really nice. So beautiful pictures again, backlit here, and just zipping along, having a great time, and very, 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 very beautiful climb. To have this kind of downhilling right in the middle of a climb is a little unusual for this long. High Point, New Jersey has this situation, but not with this kind of pavement, and certainly not this kind of duration. So Greylock, you might not be as mighty as Whiteface, but you're our favorite. Absolutely. Greylock, we love you, and we'll never stop coming back. And it's certainly a sizable enough climb to where if you're going anywhere on the planet to prepare for you know, any of the bigger climbs anywhere in the world, Greylock, you know, is a fantastic test. So here we go. We got some of these downhills, and with a couple of these, that's actually a little bit further up. When we hold on to the bike and we let go of the spike with one arm, that's when you know it starts to get steep. And around these sections, of course, we're watching the road, and we're keeping the stand-up spike going. And this last minute or so, you've been able to see how efficient the stand-up spike stroke is when you get up to that past 20 miles an hour. There's absolutely no way to kick. And notice how the transition speeds are just brutal. So bicycles do that too, but bicycles carry a little more speed into uphills, and on a board it's just flat out nothing. Carry virtually no speed off of descents. As soon as you go back into uphilling, you're back into climbing. So make sure you are aware of that, because it can be very disconcerting when you've done that long a downhill stretch, and then wham, you have to like literally 180 degree change. The body was downhilling, it was traveling via gravity, and now wake up and climb. And that if you're a cyclist, you'll know that feeling, but it just, on a bike, it's a little less, and also you can go into gearing. And it's funny because cross-country skiers have always spoke about gearing, go into a different gear, change the technique of your stroke. And in stand-up spike, there's no changing of stroke. There's just changing of position slightly, and it's more of a mental state. So in stand-up spike, when you do shift gears, so to speak, it's more of a mental state where you're looking to get incredibly relaxed, and you're loose and tight, and making sure that you have a really, really good injection into the pavement. And if it falters at all, don't let it freak you out. Look at that leading shoulder on that left side of the athlete, your right of the picture. Notice how those shoulders are offset just a little bit. Those are speed bumps again. We're going around them. And here is when we're coming to this little downhill sections. And there's the spike over to the neutral carry position. and we gave this car the go-ahead, but they're actually looking for a parking lot, which we didn't know. So that's kind of what they're looking for there. They stop right there, and they're going to pull in and park and do a little hiking. And now we're actually leaned on that bike because here comes the steepest section of this downhill in the middle of our uphill. And again, the pavement's absolutely beautiful, and so the carving is nice, and bang, straight into the back of that bicycle. And they've got disc brakes, so they're just feathering the disc brake just a little bit and giving us a little slowdown. But all this rolls out, so if you know it, you're going to be fine, and it won't be a problem. On skis, it's going to be rather fast, and it's a pretty big commitment on roller skis. If your downhill isn't dialed in, you're going to want to make sure you really know this section and you have nice downhill abilities. Otherwise, take a pass on it and proceed slowly and in control. This is a wonderful little downhill section, all glass right here. It's all going to roll out. And there we are, hamming it up a little bit for the camera, saying we're going down, and we're going down with brakes. Now just imagine this board with a fully operational disc brake, and then you understand the beauty of what is spikeboarding. And we popped off that bike, we're seeing a little bit of the uphill, and there you see some speeds that you could only stand up spike at. We're waving this car through, and it's not coming through, not because it can't, but because it wanted to talk to us and say, hey, how fast were you going, and all of that stuff. So it wasn't that the car couldn't come through. We weren't holding up the traffic or anything. There was a couple of Kubi crosses popped off right there just to get us back going. So that's why this would probably be considered a very unofficial time of 1:15. There's a lot of malarkey that just went on this circuit. But of course, all of these videos that we're making, this is a very old man with heart disease. So there's not too much official about it other than to call young men and ask them to begin to train and hand this old man his bag of potatoes in a sack and send him off to the kitchen to go cook supper. Because young men destroy old men, and that's just the way that it is. So this particular athlete is not fast in any way, shape, or form. So Usain Bolt lost his last race. Why? Because he's an old man at 31, and in the sprint game, you are an old man at 31. And Michael Phelps at age 54 will be a shadow of his former Olympic self. And of course, Olympic selves really exist. It's a peaked out body at a peaked out time of life for 2 weeks of the year. The peak of this athlete's life was a very long time ago. And so young men, come on out. If you're interested in some King of Mountain racing, it's right there for you. There's good prize money, people. There's good prize money. I won't even go into it here. But you need to qualify, get some gear, qualify, and start racing. Make yourself a space in the sport. Cross-country skiers, if you're good at cross-country skiing, easy money and good times. If you want to commute with Nordic upper body, I don't know about you, but showing up with boots and ski poles is a little less casual than showing up with a board and a SkateBoard Spike and your shoes and just showing up and going. So enjoy this part of the circuit, because we're going to get back in here to work and get ready to do the rest of this event here. We're running at about 39 minutes now, and it's a full hour and 15 that's going to go down here. 70-degree day with shade. You're probably going to make it to the top without any hydration, assuming you have topped yourself off and you understand hydration. So it's critical to understand hydration, especially for 1 hour efforts, 1 hour plus efforts where you're going to go with no hydration. above, say, 70 degrees. Be incredibly careful, especially if you perspire a lot, if you have thick muscles. Thick muscles, people, if you don't know it, they get really hot, and therefore they sweat a great deal to cool themselves down, and those individuals are going to need more hydration and more electrolyte, something that we got wrong for many years. But clear urination with volume is proper hydration, and you want to make darn sure that that's going on. And to really make that happen, you probably ought to start thinking about it a day before big efforts. So you should be peeing a lot, drinking a lot, and keeping your electrolyte well balanced during well before your event. So a good 24 hours before. Don't just haul off and do events without being properly hydrated. And of course, if you wanted, you could have some hydration. You could stop. You could have a belt. You could have a camelback. We find camelbacks work much better. You don't have to unscrew lids and so on and so forth. Belts work good when it's winter time. You can carry your hydration. You're probably going to be more inclined to stop in the middle of a ski session and tilt back some hydration. But in summertime, folks, go for camelbacks. They're there, and they're easily accessible, and you'll be able to drink before you need it. Unscrewing caps is not the hot setup in summertime, when you should be maintaining your hydration very, very well. So this section, I'd forgotten about it a little bit, but it's nice. It's really beautiful. It's carrying pretty much speed, but you're working. So you are working in here. It's not a free ride. It's relatively flat, but to keep this speed going, you're really having to continue to work. And so it's not a big sort of rest period before what's about to come. And what's about to come is the rest of the climb and a couple of switchbacks near the top, which are steep, but we're going to see if they're as steep as the bottom was. I haven't reviewed this in a while, and we did this summit a few weeks ago. But I do remember the bottom as being the absolute most brutal thing that this thing delivered. And not essentially the top. The top, of course, once you go over 1 hour in climbing, which is going to happen at, say, Mount Tamalpais in Marin County, or at Whiteface. At Whiteface, you're going to go well over an hour. What's going to come into play is you're going to begin to question whether or not you're actually going to make it. And be healthy and happy at the top in a kind of a performance aspect sort of way, and finish the thing off with power. So all of these things, if you're at the top and you're absolutely dead and dying, there we go, here comes the work, as you just saw, come to almost a complete standstill, and bye-bye are the gravitational forces, and hello is the internal output from the body. So if you're finishing dead at the top, then you're just beginning in the sport. Take it easy, maybe pull back. Try to be always successful in everything that you climb. So don't go out and climb things where you just and you just stop in the middle of the thing and throw the spike in the grass and say, I give up. That's not going to be happy for you. You're not going to enjoy that, and mentally it's going to crack you. So from the very beginning of your development in the sport, try to find things that you can successfully climb. So this athlete couldn't climb a 5-foot lump when he began. Literally, people, a 5-foot lump, just the tiniest little lump off the side of the Pan Flat Manhattan Trail, and in New York City, and just legs shivering, upper body quaking. Oh my God, I'm never going to be able to do this, and then adapted to be able to climb the biggest climbs in the lower 48. Okay, so while I'm sort of talking out my ear a little bit because Evans is waiting. Oh, who's going to summit Evans first? Me or you? Or perhaps, who knows, who's that person out there who can summit Evans? Evans is going to be one heck of a gnarly beast. Probably about a 5-hour stand-up, Spike, and that's what we're pointing to, and that's the destiny and the history that remains to be done in these United States, is who will be the first person up Evans, and then who will be the first person up in Hawaii. Hawaii is just going to be like, man, I don't know, 20 hours, or who knows. I can't imagine. That's just such a monstrous thing. Definitely going to have to be supported with some drive support, feed, and clothing. There's snow at the top in Hawaii. So should be interesting. But next up is Evans, folks. In the next 1 or 2 years, we're going to be pointing to Evans. And there's history in the making here. What you're watching is an athlete go up Greylock for the very first time in stand-up spike. Stand-up spike is here. It's real. If you've been watching this long, the sport is as certain as Sunday. Check out the rest of the sport at SpikeBoarding.com. What you've been watching is the foundation stroke stand-up spike of SpikeBoarding, which is the little sister of Nordic skiing. Double pole, and there you can see very well there's a leading hip and there's a leading shoulder, and notice how the leading hip and the leading shoulder drive that square formation into those 45-degree angled hips and straight into the pavement. It's very different and very similar to double pole. In double pole, your hips would be 90 degrees to the board, and there would be equal amounts of power going into shafts on both sides of the body, and there would be no leading hip and no leading shoulder. So really pay attention to that leading shoulder and that leading hip, and also see how that shaft is perfectly parallel to the board, and that is what you want. You don't want that shaft slightly off to the side and losing power. That is what is going to just be a gift back to the universe, which you don't need to give. So the more that shaft is out of parallel to the board, the more power it is that you're losing. And getting back to what I was mentioning about this sport, it's a beautiful sport. It involves the legs. It certainly involves the legs with the stroke of Kubicross, and also inside Kubicross, which is not that high a performing stroke, but you can use it to carry your groceries home and investigate it a little bit. Just find inside Kubicross, and that is when you switch your legs, but the spike stays on the same side. But primarily the two strokes are stand-up spike, what you're seeing here, and also the Kubicross. And we'll be getting back to this gorgeous summit and showing some Kubicross. But if you're starting the sport, stand-up spike, stand-up spike, stand-up spike, and more stand-up spike. Stand-up spike is going to give you core and lat development, and it is less challenging from a technical aspect than the Kubicross. The Kubicross involves switching, switch kicking, and certainly we didn't innovate switch kicking. It's been around for a long time. Very few people on a skateboard switch kick. And check out our tutorials at SpikeBoarding on YouTube, and you too will begin to understand how to learn to switch kick. Spike basing is a tremendous way to learn and develop the quadriceps for the Kubicross. Check that out. You can see that at SpikeBasing, BASING.com. And of course, then how slow can you go drills. You will see those videos on SpikeBoarding.com. And how slow can you go, and you're going to walk, kick, and switch, and keep that even on both sides, and then you will begin to develop a switch kick. And if you're practicing your stand-up spike simultaneously on every other day, guess what? That's when the Kubicross is really going to begin to dial in very well, because a powerful stand-up spike development is going to assist a Kubicross very, very, very well. But what you're seeing now is absolutely historic. There's never been an individual that has summited this mountain in stand-up spike, let alone even possibly just kicking it on one side on a board. So folks, it's time to spikeboard. Spikeboarding's an absolute blast. It's strength, endurance, and balance, and bilateral limb development right out your door, and very casual with your shoes on. You could be dressed in street clothes and go wherever you want. And here we go. We're starting to see some characteristic features of what summit roads are going to deliver, and that is roads that begin to reach the skyline and begin to get a little higher than their neighbors right next door, where you saw that little ridge back there. And this backlit images always make for nice viewing. And take a look way down that road. Weren't we just there at that corner where that little car park was? Yeah, we were. And that's what you need to focus on and have confidence in when you do sports that don't have high velocity. So if you're swimming and running, you're paddling on water, you're going to be traveling at slower speeds, but no less effective over time. Focus on time. Right now we're at 50 minutes. We have approximately 25 minutes to go, and then this will be over, and it will be, as I said, sensationally under a world record marathon time. Just incredibly under. So everybody loves the marathon. Okay, well, you know, this is like marathoning with your body, with your upper body, pardon me. And you shouldn't shy away from the development of the upper body. Interestingly enough, where are all the obstacle course racers? Pick up the weight, put down the weight, and you CrossFit athletes? My goodness, CrossFit athletes, use your strength to commute back home from the gym. We need to make the planet proud, folks. So if you've got power and you've generated a tremendous amount of fitness in your body, human movement is infrastructure. With a little bit of education, a little bit of language, movement language education for yourself, you beast, you complete and total animal beast from CrossFit and Spartan, well, make the planet proud. If you live 3 to 5, 8 miles away from your gym, from your work, and that's the kind of athlete you are, put it into the road. Why not? Why not? You just need to learn a transport sport language. For crying out loud, at the least, ride a bicycle. And that's fantastic as well. Only guess what? A bicycle doesn't activate your core. Stand-up spike is core out your door. So we recreate, we commute. We race, we commute. And to all you racers, I don't care what it is that you're racing, if you've won anything in this life, in human propulsion racing, you were gifted with that ability at birth. I'm going to repeat that. You were gifted with that ability at birth. Simply put, there's people who could train the exact same amount, sleep the exact amount of time as you, and eat the exact replica of your diet, and they could never beat you. Ever. Never. Because they just weren't born with the genetic ability to process oxygen as well as you do, or metabolize the way that you do. So all you endurance athletes that win the trinket, that's fine, that's lovely, wonderful, but the planet doesn't care, and we are 400 parts per million of carbon over over the limit. We should be at 350. So make the planet proud, people. That's what transport sports is about. And if you're a behemoth monster in CrossFit, think about that. And think about taking some of the power that you have from CrossFit and using it to commute. And that's the beautiful thing of spikeboarding. And no disrespect to roller skiing. I don't see a lot of people roller ski commuting in Manhattan. And I don't see it in suburban areas as well. There's always a four-way, and you have to comfortably go into four-ways, and that's something that can be very comfortably done on a board, and it's something that is not very comfortably done on roller skis. Roller skiing is a beautiful sport. I love it tremendously. And also, with 6 years of spikeboarding that led up to the roller skiing, it helped a lot, folks. So if you're a snow skier and you're shying away from roller ski, I suggest you start doing a lot of spikeboarding, because it's very casual, it's very approachable, cadence breaking is very simple to do on the board, and it's going to transfer to your skiing in winter. That's just the simple fact of the matter. And roller ski is always going to require a very specialized loop that you need to know insanely well, and that's the way we do it. We find very specific places, and that's where we roller ski. With spikeboarding, we don't need specific places. We can go wherever we want, so it's not a problem. And that's the simple fact of the matter. So let's get back to see what's going on here. And what you're watching is the final execution of this summit. And thinking back to it, it did get long. So that's where you need to go into your mind, relax, and get back into the stroke and the time clock and not flip out. So you're not crossing the Continental Divide. You're not going to be out there when the sun goes down. You're going to be done within the next 25 minutes, next 20 minutes, next 10 minutes, next 5 minutes, 3 left, 2 left, 60 seconds left. And that's when you know you want to be piling it on. So you want to be piling it on as you know that that time clock starts going down. So make sure that you're synchronizing the pouring out of every microgram of water that you have left in your endurance pitcher toward the end, not piling it out and not having just enough to really pull that in. There's some good pictures where you can see that lat development in the back. So there's a tremendous amount of lat that's coming in Nordic Sport and core. And you'll see that the arms are just like a bicycle chain. All they're doing is transmitting a massive amount of power out of massive muscles. If you're using arm stroke, you're dead. You're absolutely dead. Arms are not going to get you up anything, and they're never going to generate as much power as those great big muscles that you've got in your core and your lat, your lower back. Believe it or not, stand-up spiking up mountains is a very, very, very big leg workout. Like, oh, he hadn't moved his legs at all. Well, guess where do you think all the power that's getting generated goes? It goes into the spike, and then it needs to go through the legs and into the wheels to keep the whole mechanism going. And so a calf workout, oh, you haven't had a calf workout till you stand up spike great big mountains, because the calf workout is incredible, an incredible calf workout. And the wonderful thing about stand-up spike as opposed to double poling is that your legs can get rested and comfortably stretch and move from one side to the other. It's very dynamic. In double poling, you're going to be fixed into your ski boots, and your feet are probably going to go to sleep just a little bit. You can roll back and forth on your heel and the ball of your foot, but it's a little claustrophobic and a little more uncomfortable for climbing, but no less rewarding. And of course, double poling, cross training for stand-up spike is sensational, people. So I'm here to tell you, this is the first year that we're doing a lot of double poling, big summits, and double poling is going to help your stand-up spike like mad. But cross training in general, folks, is going to help everything. The more you cross train, the more healthy you're going to feel. Now, specifically for absolutely the fastest racing in the world, you might need to barrel down after your cross training and be very specific about what it is you're doing, whether you're swimming, running, cycling, and whatnot. But remember, people, you know, racing socks off, you know, your entire life. The body was not made to be going that fast and that anaerobic for that long. So racing rusts the body. It develops free radicals, and it isn't the greatest thing in the world for you. So we're sort of happy that we haven't been chomping at the bit for the last 11, 12 years on a bike. That's what we did for the previous 10, 12 years. And running yourself at anaerobic threshold for 40 years straight, it's going to take a couple years off your life. But also, a lot of things take a lot of years off your life. Sitting around on the couch is going to take a lot more years off your life. But running anaerobic threshold rusts the body, creates free radicals. So what is the ticket? The ticket is just cross-train with a lot of sports and run your ticker hard, and not necessarily at race anaerobic threshold constantly, but certainly adding strength, endurance, and balance, and weight-bearing sport. Cross-country skiing and SpikeBoarding is going to help that. Here come those chicanes I was talking about. Now my speed seems to be a little bit faster than what it was at those lower slopes. We're going to see here when we do a little switch. Oh, certainly, yeah, this is not as pitched. There you go. So we switched and there was still rolling speed, and when you see that, you know that the pitches on the lower slopes were a heck of a lot steeper than this. When you pick up that spike and that board just bang comes to zero and it starts to go backwards, unless you get that self-arrest going, you know absolutely that you've got steepness. And you know, there's some things that aren't ever going to be able to stand up spikeable. So if you're in Boulder, you know how steep the top of Flagstaff is, and I question whether or not, you know, the size of this athlete will ever be able to stand up spike at Flagstaff. There's about a 200-meter section that is just so steep it'll just send you into a postman weave instantly on a bike. Just absolutely brutal. The locals must be laughing, but that's steep up there, guys, and when things get that steep, it's very possible it's just not stand-up spikeable. I think insanely light people, say 138 pounders, those kinds of individuals, they'll be able to stand-up spike those steeper pitches, but not this man. And certainly double poling is going to be able to climb steeper, much steeper. It's a much more effective stroke to transfer energy out of the body. But comparing the two is like comparing butterfly and front crawl and breaststroke and backstroke. The strokes are not, you know, you don't compare them for speed, so nobody sits around and laughs at breaststroke because it's so slow. No, they actually execute it and they cross-train with it because it's a lovely high-performing stroke, and it's in the world, and we do it. And so look into butterfly, people, and see how it was developed between 1933 and 1935. It's a very interesting story there. And also, of course, look at diagonal stride and look at the birth of skate ski. An incredibly interesting story there, where sadly FIS, sorry guys, you got to live with this, you tried to ban skate ski. That's a rather interesting story. You wanted to ban skate ski. Okay. All right, so then that didn't happen because smarter minds prevailed. And now we do have skate ski, and no one sits around and cries that diagonal stride is slow. No, you get out, you learn diagonal stride because it's a lovely form of human propulsion. It works. It'll work at high performance, and it'll train the bejeebers out of you. Look down the straightaway of that road, guys. Yeah, you're moving. And we're at about an hour here, and we got about another 15 minutes, and this is going to be done. And there's the lat development, as you can see. And when those lats start to come out, that's when you know you're in the right direction, and you're going to have some strong Nordic sport cross-country Nordic ski development and spikeboarding development. And it's going to come slow. It's not going to come overnight. The same way, if you're a cyclist, you know, your quadriceps didn't just suddenly begin to adapt to load overnight. It took time. You went Cat 5, Cat 4, Cat 3, Cat 2, Cat 1, and Pro, and then set world records and won big races. That is the trajectory, and that's the same trajectory in this sport. Imagine 70, 60 field 200 men behind this man, and then you'll understand the sport of spikeboarding. For all you people that ride a skateboard, you probably haven't even watched this far. If you're riding a skateboard now, then you're either kicking it casual with one leg, or you're out performing what skateboards have always performed incredibly well, and that is radical and acrobat. So if you're a downhiller, God bless you. They're just like Lindsey Vonn, and you're really seeking to attain maximum gravitational pull down the mountain, and that's a lovely thing to do. And it has nothing to do with uphill. You jump in a chair and ride to the top. Cross-country skiers go up, and this sport is the equivalent of cross-country skiing. You're on a slippery board, and you're focused on making it go fast across the flats, and you're making it go fast uphill, and you're propelling it with your upper body. Essentially, that is the essence of cross-country skiing, is to propel a slippery board and extracting power from the upper body. It's been happening for millennia and millennia, And it began, people, cross-country skiing began with one shaft. So for thousands of years, cross-country skiing is unknown origin. They guesstimate as the regions at which it began, and it began with one shaft and two skis. So again, cross-country skiing began with one shaft and two skis. And two shafts is very modern. Two shafts begin in 1700s and really don't take over until the mid 1800s globally. So there are photos of people all over Colorado and Europe skiing with one shaft. Photographs, people, black and white photographs. That's how modern the one shaft is in cross-country skiing. And so what you're seeing here is actually a return to what had been previously done. I'll see if we can get out of the way of this car, and they'll just slide right around us and keep going. They must be looking for something. I think they're looking for whether they need to turn or whether they need to go straight. It's a little bit of fork in the road here, and if you don't know where you're going, you quite don't know where to go. So that had nothing to do with us. So don't think that we were holding up traffic. It's a very mellow day here. If you want to come up when there's absolutely nobody here, come up during a weekday, and this is what this was on weekends. Behave exactly like a cyclist and stay to the side of the road and recreate and respect everybody on the mountain that needs to go where they got to go. So as soon as those people figured out where they needed to go, as you saw, they slipped right around. There's plenty of space on this mountain for recreation and vehicular transportation. Up they go to the top. And we keep tapping this out, and as you can see, the characteristics of a summit is skyline. When you start seeing skyline and you're feeling good, what you ought to begin to think is, I did not come all this way for nothing. And that nothing is one, finish, and two, finish strongly. And that's what should be going through your mind. And with 9 minutes left to go in this summit, that's what's going through this athlete's mind is, I did not come here for nothing. And that nothing, again, means finish strong. So focus and keep concentrating on what is left in the pitcher. How much is left in there? How much can I extract at this very moment so that there will be nearly nothing left at the top? So you should not be finishing exhausted and tapped out. You should be finishing with power. So again, that all comes back to having practiced all of your summits by always accelerating at the top. And this is known to all you racers who sky run and who cycle race. If you're going up hills and you're not going fast at the top, then you're not climbing hills properly. You're doing it all backwards. The beginner in all propulsion tends to go out fast at the beginning and then peters out at the end and near the tops. And this is not what you want, folks. So practice on little 3-minute uphills, 2-minute uphills, or 60-second uphills. Start easy, 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 and finish the top third much stronger than you did the rest of it. And so by now, the warm-up is absolutely sensational, and you should be feeling just terrific. If you're not, then get off mountains of this size, go back, and start to feel great at the top. So the mountain is oversized for you when you feel like garbage at the top, when you are crawling, when you are self-arresting with your head down and you can't keep going, then the mountain is a little oversized for you, and you might need another 6 months or 12 months of development. If you have a peek at our first time up Tamalpais in Marin County, you will see such action at the top, and the mountain just handed us our ass on a plate, and we just went back, kept training, and now mountains like this are more doable, and that will happen just about everybody. Have a look at that picture. Now that's when the scenic view begins to turn like that. It is absolutely inspiring. It's inspiring to you, and take that power and begin to say, I've eaten this mountain. I have eaten this mountain. And when you begin to start to eat up mountains and you stand up mountains, when you stand up mountains, you are going to feel empowered, and it is going to feel good. Really, really, really good. And the first thing a man needs after he's eaten a mountain is another mountain to eat. And you will keep eating mountains, and you'll eat your local mountains, and you'll be wanting to get out and go to bigger mountains and different mountains and start to eat them. And whether that's Whiteface, or whether that's Lookout Mountain, or Marin and Tamalpais, or Diablo, or Brasstown Bald. We're going to get down to Brasstown Bald, Atlanta. Be prepared for that. That summit is spectacular, and that was on the Tour of Georgia. And it will certainly be noted as a place to spikeboard up. And Manayunk, which is small and mighty, but every single summit you go up, whether that's Grant's Tomb in New York City, or whether that's the Wall at 185th Street in Manhattan, or Harlem, 141st Street, baby, that's the wall that makes it all happen. So we hit that times 6 easily once a week. And those little climbs lead to big climbs, and big climbs lead to amazing satisfaction, and all of this recreation leads to transportation. So if you're not commuting to work, and if you're not going to the store, then you are absolutely missing it. Not quite sure how that popped in to the soundtrack, but we must not have taken the clip and detached it. Sorry about that, folks. Soundtrack popped in from the GoPro clip, that last GoPro clip. GoPros separate video into 17-minute sections, and this probably the last little 5-minute section that is connected here. And we're about 110, 111 that we're showing here on Little Ben clock in the time code that we're watching as we narrate. There's a little speed bump, went right around that casually. And skyline, skyline, skyline. Oh gosh, it feels so good when you're up in the skyline and you know that you're there, and you know that you're within the top of the summit. And we're starting to see tourists and little crosswalks, so we know we're close. And so right now we're just thinking about when are we going to let loose what we left in the piggy bank to finish this strong, not to let it loose too soon, and also just to maintain as much output as we possibly can to get a nice time on the summit. And that's what we're focusing on there. As you can see, the final climb up is not insanely pitched, so it's just work. And we're trying not to let loose a little too soon. Actually, flat top summits can be a little bit deceiving, and if you let loose a little too soon, then you won't finish that last 300 meters, 200 meters as strong as you might like to. But folks, visit this mountain. If you come out on a bike, you're going to enjoy it. If you come to spike it, you're going to absolutely love it. And now we have included Mount Greylock into the incubation history of spikeboarding. We're very happy to have done that. We wish that there was a cycling jersey, that we could have used. But again, everybody's happy family here on the Northeast. And Whiteface is smiling at Greylock, and Greylock is smiling at Whiteface now that spikeboarding has graced its face. And we thank you very much, Greylock. We thank you very much, the Parks Department. We thank you very much, Massachusetts, for being so dedicated to the tallest summit in your state and maintaining it so well. We are forever grateful for you to having paved this road and provided such amazing recreational area for everyone. And we call everybody out to come and recreate and commute and learn transportation sports, transport sports as we like to call them. There's a little roundabout here. We're going to pop straight into it, and then we're going to come around, and there's just a beautiful monument at the top that you're going to enjoy quite a bit. Really nice restroom facilities here that they have. Probably the nicest decomposing compost toilets that I've ever been in. and thank you very much for maintaining that at the top for all the visitors, and a really nice car park, and you're liable to meet all kinds of people. We actually met some people from Minneapolis who were here, and there's a guy that takes a second glance, which is very common in spikeboarding. People say, what the heck are you doing? And these final shots are just breathtaking. The views from here are sensational. Come up here on a date, gonna really enjoy yourself. And folks, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you at the next one. Spike hard, spike often. Spikeboarding, a sport of balanced strength, brought to you by SUSOIX and SkateBoard Spike. And make the planet proud, folks. And we'll see you at the next one.